Hey everybody, welcome back to Nerd News Today. I'm Matthew, and today we're taking a look at a figure of one of my favorite bad guys in all of Marvel Comics. And that character is one who arguably is the first mutant that ever existed in the Marvel Comics universe. And that's why today I'm very excited to introduce you to Diamond Select's Marvel Select action figure of Apocalypse. This 1/10 scale version of En-Sabah Nur is really based on his early comic appearances, not what's going on right now with the Krakoan Age and any of that stuff. This really is essentially meant to look like him in the early X-Factor run. So we're going to see some hints of Walt Simonson in there, we're going to see some other artists in there as well, I think, but yeah, it's kind of an iconic look that is often glossed over for more of the modern looks, which to be quite fair are also quite amazing, but there's something to be said about the appearance that started it all. So let's talk about this packaging real quickly here, and this is like all of the Marvel Select figures. They come in this giant packaging here, which is absolutely collector unfriendly, meaning once you take them out of the box, this Apocalypse ain't going back in. We've got a massive window on the front that lets you see all of the accessories that Apocalypse comes with here, and that's a lot. And you might also note how much space this figure is taking up in the box, and that's because he is huge. Normally, I would nitpick a whole lot more about how big this box is, but in the case of Apocalypse, he kind of needs it. There's a nice image of the Apocalypse action figure on the one side that has some cardboard on it. The other side of the box is just really, again, the window, so there's nothing really on there. And the back of the box has, again, more images of the action figure from some different angles, as well as a nice little bio about him explaining Apocalypse and his, well, frankly hard to explain powers, but that's a separate video for another day. Now, what's interesting to note, by the way, is that while this packaging does mention this has 16 points of articulation, it doesn't mention that it's a 1/10 scale figure. Now, at the start of this video, I mentioned that because that's normally what everything Marvel Select is. All of the Diamond Select Marvel figures are meant to be part of the 1/10 scale, which means they're 7 inches. But this Apocalypse, I wonder if they're doing that because, frankly, he can be any size he wants. So he's still going to fit in no matter what figure scale you're going to have, and we'll show you guys that a little bit later on, but just a curious thing to point out. But the most important information is that this was designed by Eamon O'Donoghue and sculpted by the fine folks over at Gentle Giant. But without further ado, I think it's time for this packaging to have an Apocalypse of its own. So let's go ahead and get this figure out of the box and take a closer look at him from all angles. And here is our look at Apocalypse out of the packaging. Man, this thing is really big. And this is truly a figure of epic proportions. Let's give you guys a quick rotation just to let you see what we're going to be dealing with this enormous Apocalypse figure. And yeah, that really is like the first thing I'm just going to be talking all about because this guy is enormous. And in case you're curious, I'll just pop in a ruler for a second here. He's, let's do it the other way so you guys can see the measurement a little bit more clean. But yeah, he's about close to 9 inches tall. So that's bigger than your average Diamond Select figure. Typically, and I'll plop one down next to him in a moment, but you'll see that typically Diamond Select figures are not 1/12 scale figures, they are 1/10 scale figures. And that means that they're generally about 7 inches as opposed to like a 6-inch Marvel Legends. So these guys are already bigger to begin with. Now when you factor in that this is a character like Apocalypse, yeah, they went all out with this guy. They've made him as large and in charge as they possibly could. So just for a point of reference, I am going to slide over Apocalypse for 1 second. I'll pop in this Mr. Fantastic figure who we looked at recently on the channel. And you guys can see what I'm talking about here, how much bigger he is than this average-sized figure from Diamond Select and their Marvel Select line, large as they possibly could. So just for a point of reference, I am going to slide over Apocalypse for 1 second. I'll pop in this Mr. Fantastic figure who we looked at recently on the channel. And you guys can see what I'm talking about here, how much bigger he is than this average-sized figure from Diamond Select and their Marvel Select line. First thing I want to talk about is going to be this likeness right here, and does this look like Apocalypse? Now again, keep in mind this is not based on like the animated series version of Apocalypse. This is really kind of meant to be like Diamond's version of Apocalypse, but specifically, I believe it's from the X-Factor days, and I'm talking about like the first run of X-Factor comics, since that's kind of where Apocalypse really made his name. So yeah, as far as like that look goes, this really does kind of feel to me like the Walt Simonson look, you know, like it is a little bit more realistic than how Walt Simonson would draw the character, but it still reads to me as that same kind of way, that same kind of look that the character would have had. He's got that grimace as well. He's got the beady little eyes that aren't really quite beady, but you know, they're very menacing with their very distinct pupils and the way the brow is furrowed. And then there's too the way that like the head is shaped with the design of Apocalypse's head here. And keep in mind too, there's some other things that I feel like clue us into which era of Apocalypse this is, but as far as likeness goes, this is definitely him. You know, I always thought it was kind of interesting how they had like the mouth stuff going on. I don't even quite know what to call that design, but yeah, I always really thought this was a cool design in particular. And this just reads like Apocalypse 100% to me. So yeah, that's a definite win for this figure. Let's go ahead and just keep moving down a little more and talk about some of their details here. So this is meant to be kind of like this mechanical early look of Apocalypse. So we've got this giant neck collar here that has the cool looking lines. We have the outfit as well, the big shoulder pauldrons. What kind of cues me in as well a little bit to what's going on is the shape of Apocalypse, and it kind of reminds me too, if we really look at him, up and down, it reminds me a lot of the first Toy Biz figure of Apocalypse, which was, as opposed to like Apocalypse 2 that came out a few years later, that was like way more muscular, more like a He-Man figure. The first figure of Apocalypse was a lot leaner and a lot more vertical as well, a lot more just kind of like straight up and down, I guess. And that one kind of looks this way too. He's meant to be this kind of hulking figure, not wide so much as he is tall and lanky, and that definitely has given me those kind of vibes. We also have that classic Apocalypse A for his belt, which, he's had that for a while, yeah, but this particular look, again, just really feels like that Toy Biz version, which was absolutely based off the Walt Simonson run. We also have some of these exposed metal sections here, silver, gunmetal, I guess we'll call them silver sections, underneath the blue metallic look of Apocalypse's legs here. We've got the gauntlets as well. There's those really awesome Apocalypse boots. These are absolutely unique for this character from Marvel Select because, yeah, for the most part, Marvel Select and Diamond Select figures, they don't really reuse parts. So you're getting something all new all the time. So you're never going to see this mold again. It's a really impressive looking mold. Let's go ahead and actually spend some more time on those arms too, since I kind of neglected to go too super detailed on those. But yeah, check these things out. Again, gauntlets are very cool. You've got the fingers. And, oh yeah, this comes out. We'll come back to that in a little bit later. But, yeah, those parts come out. Looks really nice. Great clean paint job. Good articulation here. Let's turn him around for a second, too, so you can get a better look at Apocalypse's back, starting with his feet as well. We're seeing, again, that same kind of similar design. We've got the cables hooked up to his back. And there is our Apocalypse from behind. I do want to talk about these cables, though, that are coming out of his backside, because I currently have them attached. When you get them in the box, they will actually be unattached like this. And yeah, they're easy to get in. These are like, I had these in the other Apocalypse figures too, even though I usually threw those away, to be completely honest. They just kind of got in the way. But yeah, they attach easily just like that into the back of his wrists. And as far as like mobility goes with his arms and being able to move them with those cables intact, let's see. I mean, he's very stiff out of the box, but I mean, he's actually holding them. So that's at least a positive. I feel like back in the day, like those things just did not really hold. But yeah, there's some better give here. So I would say that this is definitely working, doing its job right, and staying intact. I mean, I don't quite know how high we can get these to go, but all right, well, we got them starting to resist a little bit. That just might be the figure, but we're getting them pretty high there, so that's pretty nice. But for the most part, I don't think you're going to have your Apocalypse figures raising the roof anytime soon, so it's probably fine just where it is. Or, again, you could just be like little Matthew and just take them out and kind of ignore them. But I will mention that while you can take them off of this part here, they don't come out of the back. They are kind of permanently in there. So if you wanted to take those out, you'd have to remove them for good. They're not going back in there unless you glue them back in there. So users, be warned about that little feature. Now let's talk a little bit more about articulation, since I already kind of showed you a little bit of it. So let's just go ahead and start with the head, which is ball jointed like all the Marvel Select figures. It moves decently. Keep in mind that he does have this giant collar that's kind of in the way, but I mean, there's some good movement there, more or less. He's moving around. Not bad, up and down. Not a ton, but it's there. Shoulders are ball jointed, so you can get some good posing, as you already saw. You can have his arms up pretty high. Again, he is very stiff out the box. That one kind of popped out already, but we could easily reattach it. We do have a pivot for the biceps. Yeah, unfortunately, all the cables are popping out right now, and that's not really because of like them not being in there tight enough. It's really got more to do with the fact that he's just very stiff. I didn't heat the joints up. That's really the thing you should do with all of your Diamond Select figures in general, is heat the joints, because you're seeing how resistant he is to movement. But yeah, you got a bicep swivel. We've got a single ball joint elbow, which is not bad here. Just, again, that's really stiff. And you guys can see that the wrists do come out. We're going to come back to that in a little bit. But yeah, the wrists can also rotate. The hands themselves also have some flex, but not a ton, because it is blocked a little bit by the gauntlet. But they do at least rotate, and we'll come back to those hands in a little bit, because there's plenty more to talk about with them. There is a torso that can move. and that's not doing too bad, all things considered, since he is stiff otherwise, but that moves. There's no waist that turns, so you are getting this kind of chest joint in lieu of that. Yeah, that's not going to move anytime soon. And that's typical of diamond figures. They rarely have the waist that can articulate. And as far as legs can go, surprisingly, these are very good out of the box. No problems. I'm actually surprised like how well he's sitting. I mean, and bending over, it's a very deep bow from Apocalypse. We have a thigh cut as well, which you can see right here. We have a knee joint that's very similar to what the bicep looked like on his arms. And his boots can also rotate and flex, and whatever his feet can move as well. Those are pretty good actually right out of the box. I'm shocked at how well they're moving, since, you know, other parts of them are very stiff. It's a little uneven in that regard, but hey, as long as it's moving, you know what, that's not the worst thing to have, right? So again, just hit your Apocalypse up with a hairdryer and that should get all these joints moving with no problems. But let's start talking accessories right now, because Apocalypse has a few really cool accessories. We'll start with the hands, and really that's where all the action is going to be, is with the hands. So each of these can come out completely. As you saw, the wrist does pop out, which is quite handy. We can go ahead and actually pull out a hand, and I'll show you something else. Because Apocalypse comes with an additional pair of hands, and this is a pair of closed fists. So if you want to have your Apocalypse smash some things, here you go. Very nice, looks identical to the other hands, just with a closed fist, but great sculpting, very mechanical, robotic looking, just like Apocalypse would have. And really all of his accessories are going to be hands. Let me show you guys the rest. And there are 3 accessories total, starting with this right here. This is like a big spiked ball hand, which you can see very good, nice and hefty, and a little sharp too, but you know, not too terrible, but yeah, good, nice detail on this guy over here. We have the classic Apocalypse claw hand. The claw does not articulate, so what you're seeing is what you're getting with that. But again, really nice paint job all around. This little bit here is also pretty sharp, so just watch out for that. But yeah, it looks really nice. I really, really like the detail on all these attachments here. There's the hole for how you're going to put this into his forearms. And on this side, by the way, you'll notice he's got a little hole for that cable that we had running onto his back. So that cable can go onto this. I don't believe that there's one of those on the spiked ball, unfortunately. So you'll have to figure out how to deal with that one on your own, I guess. Well, really that one should just be able to go right into the wrist. We'll show you that in a second, but that's hand number 2. And then finally we have hand number 3. This is the drill hand. Again, the drill does not articulate. It's just how you see it right here, but good detail. This is going to be the part that pops onto the forearm. Very nice and pointy, really cool. These are great accessories, and they're pretty big too. I mean, you can see kind of the scale in my hand, how enormous these things are. So let's go ahead and show you guys how it's going to look actually on the Apocalypse figure. And since his forearm is already off, let's go ahead and start with the drill hand. And looks like we can just line it up. And there we go. It's not quite on all the way, I should mention, just because, again, these all need to be heated up. I definitely would recommend that you heat up the joints on the hands and everything before you do anything else with him. But now you guys can see how enormous that thing is. That is a huge drill. Like, I think this might be my favorite accessory just because of how big and cool looking it is. Man, get a load of that drill hand. That is sweet. Let's pop this one out. And actually, before I do that, let me show you guys how it does, in fact, fit into this. Let's see if we can do this on camera. Yeah, there we go. All right. There we go. Okay, so now that's actually how it should be looking with the cable attached to it. There we go. It's pretty great. All right, let's go ahead and swap this hand out now for his claw hand. Let's see if we can get this in there just as nicely. Yeah, all right. Same thing. I'm going to go ahead and make sure we get the cable in there just to show you guys that it does fit. Yeah, these hands are really cool. I can't get over how cool looking these hands are. I do kind of wish that they articulated a little bit. We can't have everything we want in life, and at least just having these attachments is really cool because, to be quite honest, the Marvel Legends Apocalypse, while it had a few additional hands and stuff, wasn't quite as good as, in my opinion, this, but we'll come back to that. And last but not least, I'm going to pop this off completely, and we will go ahead and put his proper wrist back on here so we can get the mace attachment, spiked ball attachment, whatever we're going to call it here. That's where the cable's going to go. That's why it wasn't there in the hand before. Duh. And let's see if I could rotate this into a better position. And now we've got ourselves our spiked ball hand. Also really cool, yeah. These extra hands are great, and you guys can take my word for it, the normal hand fits just as nicely as this does. Now, since I mentioned that Marvel Legends Apocalypse, let's go ahead and talk about that figure. Now, I wanted to point out here one figure that you're not going to see compared to at this point in the video is a Marvel Legends version of Apocalypse. And that's because, well, frankly, I actually have one right here in front of me, and I'm not taking them out of box because I think this packaging is really awesome. So this is going to be essentially a sort of side-by-side comparison to how these two look in box. And I can tell you, if you're curious, there are a few key differences. Now, this version here is kind of like their retro toy line version. There is another version of Apocalypse that came out a few years ago that was a Build-A-Figure that has the more classic all blue and not this purple look here. And also 2 or 3 years ago, they came out with an Age of Apocalypse version of Apocalypse, but that's a wildly different costume, so we're not gonna get into that. So as far as like sculpt preference and articulation, that kind of thing, you know, really it's gonna be just your choice of what you want in a figure. They both have their pros and cons depending on what you want out of them. Like, you know, as far as their head sculpts go, I don't really know if there's one that I prefer over the other. Articulation, I don't know if, again, there's one I really prefer over the other either here. I mean, I will say that I think the Marvel Legends figure probably does edge out the Diamond Select one in terms of maneuverability and articulation. But I think Diamond Select has the edge when it comes to size, because I really like this big version of the character, and also accessories, because while they both have some good accessories here, our Marvel Legends Apocalypse, his are kind of small in comparison to what Diamond has. And Diamond, I think, is really giving you a lot more bang for the buck, because you've got 3 different shaped hands here, and they're all very big. As opposed to our Apocalypse on this side, which has that hand cannon and a pair of closed fists and a few pew-pew effects, which I don't really care that much about. Of course, the packaging is stellar on the Marvel Legends. The Marvel Select one, I'm like, whatever. And as you already know, I already took this out of box. So yeah, that kind of settles that debate here. But really the biggest thing is, I think, scale. And this Apocalypse here is bigger. So if size is something that matters to you, then Diamond Select is going to be the route you want to go. But again, at the end of the day, you can't go wrong with any version of Apocalypse. Heck, the Toy Biz was one of my favorites of all time. That's an oldie, but still a goodie. So again, I would tell you, whatever you're collecting, take a look at both of them, and that can kind of help you decide what you want. For my money though, I'm getting them all, because yeah, I like me my Apocalypse. Back to the video. Now, just for fun, I did put the closed fist hand on him just to make sure you guys can see him. So let's do some figure comparisons again, just to show you the size of him. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and bring back Reed Richards, and I'm going to bring also Johnny Storm. These are both from the Diamond Select, Marvel Select series. This looks like a family photo, a really weird family photo. But yeah, you guys can see just again how big everybody is in scale with each other. This is a much, much bigger Apocalypse. This is him growing a little bit, I think. Or maybe not. I don't quite know if this is him like meant to be upscaled in size. But this is how big he's going to look compared to other 7-inch figures. But when it comes to 6-inch figures, now you'll really get an idea of how big this figure is. And let's see, I'm going to put these characters right over here because they kind of need some bases to stand. I don't have any at the moment. You guys can really see the size difference here and how the Marvel Legends compare to a Diamond Select figure. And to be honest, this is kind of perfect. You know, I kind of like that they're this much bigger. So that's kind of the nice thing about Diamond Select figures, Marvel Select figures, when you're talking about them compared to Marvel Legends, because that height for certain characters works really well. Like the Juggernaut that they've done, the Crimson Dynamo and Titanium Man that we've gotten as well from, you know, different series. But nonetheless, the bigger characters, they always work because they're still bigger, but not quite too big, not quite whatever. So yeah, this Apocalypse, I think, fits in great, and I really like the shape of him and how he looks compared to these guys. And from a distance, he does blend in pretty well. Now, keeping in mind, these are the X-Men 97 figures, so they're a little bit more cartoony than your typical Marvel Legend, but still kind of works, and it's the size that matters. So final thoughts on the Marvel Select Apocalypse figure. You know, I love Apocalypse in any version that he comes in, and this is another real knockout for this character. And the fact that it does look that much bigger than the typical Marvel Legends, that actually works in its favor. I don't care too much about scale, and you know, you guys saw the comparison side by side. It's not that much of a difference, but it is enough, but still not too much. So it's kind of perfect. I really like the way this looks. I like the colors. I like the approach that they did this guy with here. So yeah, this is definitely getting a high recommendation from me. Absolutely worth adding to your collection, whether or not you do collect Marvel Selects, because if you already have Marvel Legends, he's going to blend into your collection seamlessly. Now, if you want to pick up this Apocalypse figure for yourself, go ahead and check out my Amazon affiliate links in the description below. Clicking on those links helps support this YouTube channel at no extra cost to you. So until next time, I'm Matthew. This has been Nerd News Today. That's our look at the Marvel Select Apocalypse figure. We will see you guys next time with more action figure reviews and everything else we do here on the channel.